Now, what's happened? Cast arithmetic or not, take a look at the arithmetic of the Sensex. The BSE Sensex did make some recoveries, but it took a 600-point plunge this morning over the BJP's Bihar loss. It settled down eventually 144 points down, and the investors got some reassurance after Finance Minister Arun Jaitley's remarks that reforms would continue, that this election would have no impact at all on the reform agenda. The rupee also tumbling initially by 68 paise, eventually closing at a nearly 8-week low of 66.44 against the American currency. Persistent dollar demand from banks and importers amid sharp fall in equities adding to the gloom. The market taken, it seems, by surprise by the depth of BJP's loss and fearing that the Modi government could now put the bitter pill of tough reforms on the back burner. That's the fear that it appears the markets have. Okay, are those...
There is one decision, the GST, which requires a constitutional amendment approval in the Rajya Sabha. And sooner or later, I think my friends in the Congress party will see reason. GST, if it benefits any state, will benefit states like Bihar the most, because they are consuming states, and a destination tax always is more friendly to consuming states.
Okay, so the Prime Minister trying to play down fears that the Bihar election will have any impact on reforms agenda of this government. Rhythm Desai, Managing Director, Morgan Stanley, joining me. Sumant Sinha, Founder, Chairman and CEO, Renew Power Ventures, also with me. Appreciate both of you gentlemen joining me at the moment. Give me a sense, Rhythm, from the market's perspective and really from the perspective of the investors that you speak to. Are they worried that as a result of Bihar, reforms will be put on the back burner, that you could now have a parliament session where virtually an emboldened opposition will not allow the government to function? Is that the reason why the market was spooked this morning?
Well, Rajiv, actually, if you look at what the market has been doing over the past, say, couple of weeks, it was kind of feeling that the NDA was on the back foot. And a lot of the NDA defeat was priced into the market, in fact, even before the counting began on Sunday, which is why the reaction today has not been as dramatic as it could have been had this been a big surprise for the market. But the point you make about the market fears, yeah, I think certain quarters of the market do fear, and it is imperative now that the government come out and put those fears to rest, like the Finance Minister did earlier today. It has to be followed by action. I think the fear is that, and this is basically on the premise of how governments in the past have reacted to electoral defeats, how they have reacted to electoral defeats in the past, that governments resort to populist measures. This government has it has resisted populist measures since it has taken seat in Delhi, and I think investors will look for those signals going forward that reforms continue and no populist measures happen as a consequence of the Bihar election result.
Let's look at specific reform measures, Sumant Sinha. The GST, the Goods and Services Tax. Now, that's the obvious low-hanging fruit that the Finance Minister and the Prime Minister must push for. Now, do you believe, if you were advising them, that that's what you've got to go for? Somewhere you're going to have to now do something. Instead of probably, instead of focusing so much, investing so much of political capital in Bihar or even going to Wembley, should the Prime Minister's real political capital be now ahead of the Parliament session? How do I get the Congress across the table and settle this GST issue by December?
Yeah, of course. I think that is absolutely right, Rajdeep. The government has been trying to push the GST bill for quite a long time, and as we all know, it should have been cleared in the last sitting of Parliament, but the opposition did not allow that to happen. Now, some way this current government has to find getting the opposition on board, and perhaps now with the Bihar elections out of the way, one might in fact counterintuitively believe that the opposition has nothing really at play for the next 1 year, let's say politically, as far as the BJP is concerned. They might actually be more willing to play ball now. And in fact, I think if the government reaches out to them again, perhaps this is a more auspicious time to get it done.
Is it just GST?
We don't know how
Sumant,
things might play out actually.
Is it just about GST, Sumant, or is there something more that you would like to see?
No, obviously it is not GST. No, of course there are many other things, Rajdeep, that need to happen. Not all of them are legislative actions. A lot of them are executive actions, and I think the government in the course of today is demonstrating that they're looking at still focusing on those areas. For example, the Prime Minister, from what I read, called for a meeting and reviewed all the major infrastructure projects. The Finance Minister has made the announcements that he's made. So I think clearly the government means to carry on with the reform process. I think that unlike, as Rhythm was saying, a lot of other governments which have internalized the fact that electorally they have to become more populist after defeats, I think in this case, given the breadth of time that this government has, which is another 3.5 years for the next central elections, they can actually get a lot of things done still. And I think that will play well for them as they go forward. So I think, to my mind, I think the government is probably going to push forward on reforms even faster. Whether it's the bankruptcy bill, whether it is, continue to push forward on the DISCOM restructuring package, on roads construction, and there are so many areas in which the government can move forward without actually having to take a step back at this point.
You're effectively saying adversity can be turned into opportunity. Rhythm, do you see that happening? Do you believe that the next 3-4 months leading up to budget 2016 are critical? If this government has to restore some confidence among investors, among industry, the next 3 months is the one window, because then you get into another election cycle. There are elections in April, May, starting with Assam, going into Bengal, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, and the big one then in UP at the end of the year or early 2017. So are the next 3 months critical? That if the government has to turn adversity into opportunity, it's about the next 3 months.
No, absolutely, Rajdeep. In fact, I think that the market started sensing that after the morning trade, that the government will actually use this as an opportunity to push things forward. So, as I said, this government has not demonstrated tendency to go towards populist measures. It has been quite stoic in the way it has managed the fiscal side. Even today, we are actually running a fiscal deficit which is below target, and the target was fairly aggressive. So I think it is reason to believe that the government will actually push forward with reforms. There's an opportunity, as you rightly say, and I think the market in what it did in late afternoon trade may have sensed that yes, maybe we will get a slew of reforms. In fact, I may actually go to the extent of saying that may have already started on Thursday itself, because we got this big bang power reform as soon as the embargo on announcements was lifted when Bihar polling stopped.
Right.
So I think the government may be already ready with a few announcements, and maybe we get those in the next few days.
Okay, let's leave it there. Rhythm Desai, Suman Sinha, appreciate as always your joining us, giving us a sense, because a day after what has happened in Bihar, the immediate fears were reforms. Both the gentlemen on my program believe this is an opportunity for the Prime Minister to actually push ahead with reforms. The next 3 months are the clear window leading up to budget 2016.
जहाँ तक याद आती रहेगी।